Counties every day.
That's a long ways.
I'm Emma Newman, co-chair of OBPAC from Springfield, Oregon, and excited to be here.
Beth Young, member from Newport, Oregon.
To folks on the participating remotely, Lauren.
Sorry, are we introducing ourselves?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Lauren Morris, I live in Coos Bay, Oregon, and I'm a member of and work for the Coquel Indian tribe.
Aaron.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron. I'm currently a fourth-year student studying civil engineering at Oregon State University. I'm originally from Southern Oregon, but I'm living in Corvallis now. I'm getting ready to graduate this coming June, and I am the under 21 chair here on OBPAC.
Andre.
Good afternoon, everyone. Andre Lightsey Walker. I use he, him pronouns. I am based in Portland, Oregon, and I'm an at-large member of OBPAC.
I believe that is all of our members. So ODOT officials, if you would please introduce yourselves as well.
Sure. I'm Jessica Horning. I'm ODOT's board administrator and the pedestrian bicycle program manager for ODOT.
You guys hear me okay on the video? Okay. My name is Susan Peitzman. I am the policy and implementation manager here for the public transportation division at ODOT.
Hi, this is Roberto Cotto. I've been with Oregon Department of Transportation for 3.5 years. This is actually my first day as a active transportation program analyst, and I'll be working closely with Jessica, Susan, and Leanne. Nice to meet everyone.
And so just a quick check, if folks could. I was just gonna say, we're working out our logistics with technology for our very first official hybrid meeting. So if folks could just throw a thumbs up using the reaction button or a yes in the chat. If they can hear everybody on all the different ends of the table, okay, as we were making the introductions, or if anybody's having issues, that'd be super helpful. All right.
Oh, gas streaks crossing.
Okay. Great. Sounds like.
So let's go ahead and move on to
Public comment?
How do you want to go over?
Oh, never mind. Let's go ahead and welcome everybody, which we did. Hybrid logistics, aren't they fun? And then,
yay, we have new members, and it sounds like all the other groups have new members as well, which means that we are up and running. ODOT is much closer to being in danger of being overwhelmed by all of the committee members now, which is fabulous. And then, do we have any updates on the current work plan initiatives?
Oh, this is kind of like what we're doing for this meeting.
Oh,
So
we will be doing that.
yeah, this is the focus today.
and then.
We will also be reviewing for the work plan for last time we were supposed to figure out what we were doing with our work plan, and then we ran out of time. So we are revisiting it this time at more of a quick and dirty level to just kind of make sure that everybody is on board and doing what they feel is going to make them feel successful in this group. So we will be talking about that a little later. And now it is Emma's turn.
Okay, so now we're ready to take public comment. I want to remind everyone that OBPAC is committed to diversity, inclusion, civility, and respect. Committee members and members of the public who are providing public comment are expected to be respectful and maintain civility about avoiding foul, obscene, hateful, racially or ethnically derogatory language that creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. Do we have anyone who would like to provide comments to our committee today? Either, I guess, not here in person, because I can look around the room, anyone virtually?
It looks
Please
like we have
indicate by
a,
raising your hand virtually or putting a comment in the chat.
we have a comment in the chat.
Whitney Bennett, I see that you would like to speak to us.
Hi, yeah, Whitney Bennett from Commute Options. I just put a comment in there because I'd love to share some information about our organ-friendly driver program. So I could talk about that over a quick 30-second blurb right now. Okay, that we just updated it and we have it now available in English and Spanish. And so this program is really great for all of us that are advocates for walking and biking, helps us learn a lot about Oregon law and updates, and also helps us to, when we push it out to different groups to take it, the more they can be respectful for all of the users on the street. And the other piece about it is it's switched now. We're doing a lot more in person. So if anybody wants to learn more about the program, they could reach out to me. We run it statewide, and it's sponsored by ODOT. That website's oregonfriendlydriver.org. And my contact information is Whitney@Commute Options. So just wanted to get that out there to all of you. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Whitney. I personally have taken Oregon Friendly Driver. I have my sticker in my car downstairs right now. So thank you for your work on that. I encourage other OBPAC members, if you haven't taken it, to test it out and give any feedback that you have back to Whitney and others who have worked on the Oregon Friendly Driver program for the state. Whitney, thank you for sharing the links. If you can put those in the chat with your contact information, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you very much.
Any other comments from community members? Not seeing any hands raised or other comments in the chat. I think that completes our public comment.
Does that make it?
All right,
So let's go ahead and do we have any changes to the minutes, or can we approve them as sent out?
And I must apologize. I sent out the link to the minutes and the materials early last week and did not realize that I sent it to the OBPAC inbox rather than the OBPAC listserv. Hence you all getting that message from me this morning with the oopsie. On it, I will make sure I do not do that again. So if folks need additional time to review the minutes. Also, we did have a different new minute taker last time, so they are much more bare bones minutes than we normally have. So if anybody's had a chance to look at them and has thoughts on whether we need to take a look at the recording and flesh those out a little bit more, that's something that staff can do.
So would you guys like to, I either need a motion to approve them or a request to postpone that decision?
Motion to approve the minutes as is.
Do we have a second?
I was second it.
Okay, we'll approve as they are written.
Right? Easier for me.
I have one clarification. Is the full recording posted publicly if people want to look at the full?
Yeah, we just got that loaded up to YouTube and it will be on the public website when we post the materials.
Excellent. Do we have Karen? Are you around?
She is not. I'm taking on the division updates for her. She's got a conflict. Apologies for that. So
She wanted me to let you all know that it is very good reason because she is meeting with her government affairs coordinator on post-election strategy. So it's one that she unfortunately could not move. And she thought you all would understand the.
Yes.
so I wanted to give a couple, I should turn my camera on. The hybrid's new for me, so thanks for the patience. It's also taken me almost about 3 years to get accustomed to the virtual environment. So we'll see how long with hybrid. Okay, so I wanted to give you guys a couple updates on what's happening with the Public Transportation Division. One of the big things that we've been working on for quite a while is staffing and ensuring that we have the appropriate levels of staffing, and hiring some replacement positions, as well as we have had some key staff either move outside the agency or get promoted within the agency. All great things for folks, but has also been some challenges in terms of just making sure we're getting everything that we need to do done and prioritizing correctly. And so I wanted to let you guys know there's a couple of new faces of ODOT staff on the call today. I was hoping that both Roberto and Dorian could introduce themselves. Roberto, as he mentioned, is our active transportation program assistant, and Dorian is our new innovative mobility program manager. So if you guys wouldn't mind saying hello so people can see your face and know who you are.
Hi.
There's Dorian.
I usually call meeting.
I'm sorry, Dorian, I think I talked over you. Apologies. Would you mind coming forward a little bit?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Dorian. I'm the new Innovative Mobility Program Manager. Yes, it's great to be here. It's my first day. And I hope to see you all again soon.
Thanks for joining us, Dorian. As she said, it's her first day, so welcome. It's also Roberto's first day. Roberto?
That is correct. Hi, everyone. My name is Roberto Cotto. I actually been with the Oregon Department of Transportation for 3.5 years now. Before taking on this new role, I was working for our Office of Innovative Funding. So on the policy side regarding ROC and very interesting topic of tolling. But I'm happy to be part of Suzanne's and Leanne and Jessica's team as I think my new title is Active Transportation Program Analyst. I'm getting used to the new title.
And so Roberto and Dorian are two faces that you'll likely see different iterations through OBPAC. So thank you guys so much for being able to join us. A couple of other, we have some transit positions that will be going live relatively soon out into the public. One of our regional transit coordinator positions for Region 4 specifically, and then we also have an intercity network coordinator. We had some recruitments that have been closed, and so we'll be bringing some more people on relatively soon, but the interviews are pending for those positions right now. And that includes Leanne Ferguson's old position as the Safe Routes to School Program Manager. That position is closed and we're in the process of reviewing applications right now. Another one that is of interest very much from just a climate greenhouse gas mitigation standpoint, we are hiring a public transit climate specialist position to help lead our greenhouse gas reduction, transition to low, no emission vehicles from the transit side of things. That's pretty exciting. We also have a compliance position and then a capital program coordinator position, which is a position that helps support bus purchases. And then we also have a passenger rail program coordinator position. So we're a division of about 50 people, and we've just been in a position of hiring and hiring and hiring. So you'll see some new faces coming up. Let's see, additional kind of the Oregon Community Paths. Alan, are you on the line by chance? Okay, we have Alan Thompson is our Oregon Community Path Manager. We are in the application period now for local agencies to submit an application for our Oregon Community Paths program. We had 61 pre-applications totaling $96 million, requesting $96 million in requests. Oh, sorry about that. I'm jumping ahead on this one. And then, so those, I would say, Jessica, are you doing a Ped Bike strategic update as well later? Okay. Do you mind if I give a couple of bullets on that? on your program, or would you like to do it? I just have it all written out here. So Jessica is program manager for our Ped Bike strategic program. And we have a 100% list of projects that have been identified. We've scoped roughly, ODOT has scoped roughly 160 or $126 million in projects for $61 million in funds. And this will be projects included in the 24-27 STIP. So that has been a huge body of work that Jessica has picked up. That was a decision in discretionary funds for the 24-27 STIP from the Oregon Transportation Commission. So just wanted to say kudos to Jessica for the development of that program and the huge body of work to identifying projects on the ODOT system for those, let's see, $61 million worth of funds. And all of her work with OBPAC on filling the recruitments. Is there a Safe Routes to School update as well?
Yep, we're doing all the.
Okay, then I will keep my mouth shut then.
Just for the benefit, since we do have new members, any acronyms that we buzz through there that we need to decode, or for general folks who are listening in?
Happy to decode anything. The other big thing that we are figuring out, considering, is now that the governor's race is over, and I believe most of the seats in the Oregon legislature are set, as Jessica mentioned, Karen is meeting with government relations and just what our agency kind of post-election strategy is. We're in the position right now of brushing off some of our programmatic fact sheets as part of the governor's transition, like education packets and things like that. And working with our agency leadership to ensure that the work of the people in the public transportation division and representing our stakeholders is adequately reflected in the materials that are going in this transition. So just wanted to let you guys know about that as well.
Excellent, thank you. The legislative calendar. Do you have anything to express?
I do. Just give me a moment. I will find it to share.
I've got it on the drive if you want me to pop it up.
Yeah, if you could do. I'm having to work off the my browser because my Zoom wouldn't start up, so it's all a bit chaotic at this end.
All right. Hopefully everybody can see that.
My X-ray eyes.
Yeah, it's I think Kaz can kind of walk us just through the color coding.
I'm actually struggling to see that myself. I have to pull it up. Could we possibly come back to this agenda item?
Sure, not a problem.
Right.
Leadership discussion in the MAC. Emma.
Yes. Means I just have my notes up. Just 1 second. The short story is that Nick Meltzer, the bicycle representative, Bob Jundas, the pedestrian representative on the Mobility Advisory Committee, and I met with ODOT leadership, so Cooper Brown, Mac Lind, and Karen Criswell. Felt like it was overall a positive meeting, which was good. And we agreed on a few key points coming out of it, and that's what I am pulling up right now. There we go. So there was agreement among all of us that there are kind of 3 main areas to adjust pertaining to the MAC. They include institutional culture shift, meeting conduct and processes, so that includes facilitation and membership requirements, and the scope and authority of reviews. So what comes to these groups, why, and when. So that was nice to kind of have that foundation built. They are in the process of reaching out to, the ODOT executives are in the process of reaching out to some freight representatives and convening some more conversations. Hopeful about where this might go, but hoping to also affect some real lasting change. And I don't know fully where it's going to end up yet. But we should be reconvening no later than the first week of December. So I should have another update at our next meeting.
Do the new committee members know the history of the MAC and why we have been so dogged about it? Or do we have any questions? Is everybody on board?
I'd love a little intro.
So the MAC has been one of these things that we have been discussing for a very long time, it seems, because it kind of started on my plate because there's a city. Well, it's not much of a city, it's Stanfield, and it's this tiny little town that has 4 lanes of traffic that go right down its historic downtown. And they wanted to redo the striping on it, and it became a huge issue. And it became this thing where they weren't going to get, it was prolonging the process because one fraction didn't want one thing to happen, and another fraction wanted the other thing to happen. And there's kind of a stalemate. And this MAC committee has stalemated multiple projects around the state historically. So that's where, so I wrote a nasty little letter and then Emma took it on. So go Emma.
Yeah, and I can just share that, you know, within some of the purview items, the striping is something that there is Oregon administrative rules saying that changing of striping is not actually changing the mobility, your ability to move freight through a space. And so there are numerous times when the MAC is talking about purely striping, even though the administrative rule is very clear that that is not a reduction in capacity for freight vehicles to move through. And so the hope with all of this is that we can really achieve a safe and effective transportation system for all Oregonians. We need to make sure that, you know, products can get to various different stores, that our economy still functions, but we are unwilling to see that happening at the cost of people's lives. You can think about Sarah Pliner recently dying up at 26th and Powell. There have been numerous locations where the decision-making has been in favor of mobility without balancing and fully implementing the adopted policies that ODOT has. So when I served on the MAC charter work group just a couple of years ago to try to provide some more clarity for the group because of a Secretary of State audit, we brought up the blueprint for urban design, which is the current design standards for ODOT. And it seems like there's some situations where there's a breakdown between the approved policy in ODOT and how the recommendations are coming out of the Mobility Advisory Committee. And so we're just trying to sync up. Here's the adopted policy that is intended to achieve, I'm looking on the wall here, you know, ODOT's visions and goals, and seeing that that policy isn't always being consistently implemented. And this is one of the venues in which there's a policy implementation breakdown. So that's how our former work plan kind of said, okay, there's alignment here because this is an area where things don't seem to be working the way that they're supposed to. So how can we shine some light on that and try to have adopted policy implemented consistently across the board to save lives and reduce serious injuries? Does that cover it? Any other questions?
Yes. And so this, we started fairly low at like a letter, and then this thing has escalated to quite a large scale because we want to see things like the blueprint for urban design. We want them implemented instead of somebody being like, oh yeah, I don't like roundabouts, and then like never putting in roundabouts because of a dislike, even though it is policy. So anyway, that's what that was. It looks like MAC, anything else you want to say about the MAC, Emma? It sounds like it's going in the correct direction.
Yeah, I am hopeful. I think for a little bit more historical context, serving on the work group to develop the charter led to actually having a bicycle pedestrian representative, two different people serving on that committee who were supposed to be on there for years, but they weren't.
And that's who you talked to.
Yeah, so I talked with both of our representatives who OBPAC appointed about a year ago. We appointed Nick Meltzer and Bob Jundeff. It would be nice from our letter of March of last year to have that in the charter document so that the mobility staff, when I talk to them, they understand that no, Bob and Nick are not on OBPAC. They are appointed by us. And that was a recent conversation where there was still confusion because it hadn't gotten into writing, which we had requested, and that still hasn't happened. So it was a good meeting to highlight, here are the requests that we've crafted and asserted as a full committee through our 2 letters. And our requests still haven't been met. And it would create more ease and clarity if they were to be met.
So what do we need to do to move forward?
What we need to do to move forward, I think, is Bob and Nick and I continue, and Lake McTighe from Metro is also on the work group. Continue that work group, meet with ODOT executives again, and probably freight representatives as well over the next month or so, and then have another update at our next meeting, hoping that we've made more progress.
Excellent. Does anybody who's new and fresh to the committee want to help Emma, or shall we keep letting her fight this one battle?
I can revisit this at the work plan and say, given what we're looking at for all the different pieces of the committee, who wants to do what?
Yeah, so this is just one piece. So we'll just table that for now. And it looks like Kaz is ready. So as soon as we do some fancy screen share.
Okay, Jessica, if you could do the screen share for me, please.
Done.
Perfect. So I'll talk you through the color coding first of all, which will help to orient ourselves. The pale blue is an organizational day, so specifically the swearing in of new members. And then the yellow is training days, none of which really needs to concern us. The Legislative Council deadlines are the darker shade of blue. And that is for legislative concepts that have been submitted to go through the vetting process to make sure that they are legal, and if there are any legal issues, for those issues to be highlighted and then resolved if possible. The purple, very important to pay attention to, those are the state holidays, the few days off that will be available during the session. And the red are the main session dates. Where you can see the pale green, that is the floor sessions, so when actual debate is happening on the floor. And so in terms of what the main dates are, the 9th of January is swearing in day. The 17th of January is when session officially begins. The 21st of February is the measure introduction deadline. So that would be the last day on which a bill could be introduced. And then from the 6th of March, that's when the real kind of meat of the session will start with floor debates. And then we'll go through all the way through to June. The target sine die is the 15th. So the hope is that all of the work of the legislature would be concluded by that day, the 15th of June. But bearing in mind that that may not be the case, there is a constitutional sine die at the 25th, and that is when session absolutely has to conclude according to Oregon's constitution. So in terms of what this means for OBPAC, we already have the one legislative concept going forward around safe routes to school. And we won't know until a bit later on precisely when that's coming through, but and those things can change at the last moment. So I think it's a question of watch this space. You have the sort of the main deadlines to keep an eye on where things are, and should OBPAC choose to write to the OTC, it would definitely make to support any particular measures. or to the governor, it makes sense to do so earlier rather than later, and certainly before the 6th of March when the floor debates start. One other minor piece of news before I conclude, which is that I'm actually going to be moving on from my role as Strategic Planning and Communications Manager. I'm moving to the Oregon Health Authority, where I will be doing government relations. So I'll be actually down there in the mix a little bit, and I'll be working on behavioral health in particular. So I just wanted to say it's been a real pleasure working to this committee over the last year and a bit. Really appreciate the work you all do, and wish you all the best for the new legislative session and the new gubernatorial term. And if there's any questions,
Kaz. I hope you very much enjoy your new adventure.
it's very kind of you to say.
All right. You have any questions, Emma?
I don't think so. I think to emphasize what Kaz says is, if we want to weigh in as a committee, do it sooner rather than later. January 17th is when the session begins. And March 6th is definitely like the end point of when we want to weigh in. So I think this is an item that we may want to take action on between now and next meeting to draft a letter. We can discuss that more when we get to work plan, but I just want to put a note in that as a potential action item coming out of today's meeting.
Splendid. All right, the BPAC. Andre, Beth, Lauren, and Aaron, anything that you have?
Lauren, you want to take that on?
Not particularly. I know we've reached out to some of the local people, the cities and counties, and a letter has been drafted to send to them to ask if they have interest in our help. And Aaron is updating some of the slides that we used for the ACT gathering that we had, talking sessions. So this is another talking session, but at a more local level. Once we hear back from the majority, will set a date, or no, I think there might be a date in the letter of when we want to hear back.
You there?
Yeah,
December,
if you want to take that.
Yeah, I have
that'd
the
be great.
calendar here.
Okay.
So December 5th is when we are requesting responses. December 5th, that was. December 6th, we are sending in reminder email. December 13, 10 a.m., our work group will have a Zoom meeting to review and finalize the event. And then we're thinking the event date would be January 12th, 7 to 8 p.m.
Wonderful. All right, anything else? Any assistance, anything that you need to ask? Everything is rolling along quite well, it looks like.
I'll pop in on this quickly.
Okay.
Just a conversation emerged during one of our onboarding, and Dell had expressed some interest in potentially being involved. Dell, I know that you actually sit on your local BPAC, and so
That's correct.
I know that we're limited on the amount of representatives that are allowed to participate, but if you're interested, I wanted to sort of open that opportunity up for you, and I could phase myself out and phase you in if you were interested.
I'm interested. I don't know what's involved yet, but I'm definitely interested in delving into that a little more.
Okay, great. Well, I don't know what's the best way to talk about that. Do we just explore that now, folks? What do you think?
Work plan.
I think we're going to be working a lot on our work plan, and when we get there, that is something that we should do at that point. Okay?
Sounds
Perfect.
great.
All right, next thing on the list.
Dell in.
Sorry.
In the meantime, I could clue them in if we have a break.
Excellent. Anything else from the BPAC outreach subcommittee?
Excellent. Oh, never mind. Emma's got something.
I just wanted clarification from the work group. I want to say thank you for your work. Is there anything that you need from either Mavis or me? Because the original letter had some reference to co-chair participation, and I'm not sure if we should be intending to participate in the next gathering, or if you'll have it and you want to run with it, that's awesome. I just want to know if I need to mark my calendar.
I think we'd
I
love to
think it
have
would-
you.
Yeah, because you guys might be able to answer questions that the individual BPACs have that we can't. And also just to point out a difference between the BPACs and the acts that we did is these groups are solely working on bicycle and pedestrian, or bicycle or pedestrian, where the acts, it was just like one representative, if any at all, on the ACT committee. So we're going to be really preaching more to the choir, but hopefully able to help them, give them a connection.
Great. And so I'm seeing Thursday, January 7th, 7 to 8 p.m.
I have January 12th.
Oh. I have the wrong one. Okay. January 12th, what was the time?
7 to 8 p.m. It'll be a Zoom.
And I was going to go through our standard public meeting invite for that, so that as many of the committee members can participate in that as you want. You don't have to worry about the going astray of public meeting.
Excellent.
Guidelines there.
Thank you. Thank you for watching out for us on that. Okay, fabulous. The next is the Oregon Transportation, the OTC Modal Chairs meeting. That is tomorrow. I will be attending and representing you guys. So I was going to give you my little spiel, and then we can fix it right here before I go. So my spiel is basically, thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of the OTC, because it is a privilege. Thank you for the IIJA funding, because it has been wonderful to see those monies put into something that is going to affect people walking and biking. Once again, we're still severely underfunded. We cannot create a complete system for a very long number of days of years, which Jessica is going to get me the number of years.
We were at 162.
162 years at the rate that we're going, that we'll have a complete system for bimodal transportation.
That was before several months of 8+% inflation.
Prior to inflation. Anyway, I only get 2 minutes, so we're not going to get too in the weeds. The safe routes and the community paths, they have been very, very successful programs. They are awesome. They have a lot of love behind them. They are severely oversubscribed. There are so many wonderful projects, and there's just not enough money to go around. So, of course, we will be asking for more money. And we are horrified because there's been a significant and accelerating pedestrian and bike death and injury. The data is just not going in our favor. So we need to figure out a way to make that shift. And then, of course, I will thank them for supporting the bike and pedestrian interests, encourage them to continue enforcing the blueprint for urban design, because it very much affects every single downtown in Oregon, and encourage them to designate sufficient funds to complete our system. Anything else I need to put on my list before I polish it up and make it a little more pretty?
I must add a statistic about the safe routes to school, 4 to 1, or
okay,
I think it is. I don't remember.
Is it 4 to 1?
In our previous round of applications, it was 4 to 1. And that is considering that that's just who applies.
after we've had a couple of rounds where some folks have just decided not to apply anymore because it's so competitive. And
How about the community paths? I know that was oversubscribed, but I don't know by how much.
that was similar, and I will get that number from Alan if it's not in our talking points for the grant program update. this
Perfect.
afternoon.
All right, anything else that anybody feels? Yes.
Talking about safety, the book Right of Way points out that, and they might like this, that things have changed. Whenever things have changed, then people are willing to make legislative changes or whatever. So the trucks are higher, flatter, people get hit in the chest and die rather than in the waistline and roll. So that's a big contributor to these deaths. It's not that we are making progress in infrastructure, I feel. But that has changed.
So it's more a dangerous by design in terms of the cars, not necessarily the infrastructure that we are.
Yeah, I don't know. This is up for your guys' decision, but I think ODOT's doing pretty well. I mean, going in a positive direction on infrastructure.
Agree.
So, but we need to be more reactive just because of this change in vehicles that people buy.
Yeah. And Jessica and I are going to powwow about a little more data about that point in particular, because it's one thing to say, but everybody wants to know a little more information.
It's in the book, Right of Way. The stats are there on a national level.
Yeah, and for those of you who've been around the committee table for when we presented about the research that ODOT's done around pedestrian fatalities and injuries and low income and BIPOC communities that showed there was overrepresentation in areas of the state where you have more BIPOC residents and more Black, Indigenous people of color and more low income residents. Part of the second phase of that research that Josh Roll, our sustainability and active transportation research coordinator, is working on is kind of getting into more of the nuance of is that there's more gaps in the infrastructure there. We don't have as many sidewalks and bike lanes. Is that related to some of these vehicle design changes? So that's something that ODOT's hoping to delve into through a research program in the future.
When will we have any information on that? Because that's what we want.
Yeah, so that I do not have a timeline for that one yet. They are just working on their proposal process for this year. And I think some of those proposals are in the line for funding. So December 5th, I believe, is the deadline for those proposals, and usually January, February is when we review them and the committee structure makes recommendations for what goes forward for funding.
Okay.
But that's something I could present to you all in January if there's interest of just what are the research proposals that are going forward. I can also tell you, I've just pulled up the daily traffic poll report that our transportation data section pulls together every day. And as of November 8th of this year, there have been 102 pedestrian fatalities reported in the state of Oregon and 9 bicyclist fatalities. That pedestrian number is a 52% increase from where we were at this time last year, which was unfortunately also a record setting year for us. So unfortunately, that trend is going in the opposite direction that we would like to see.
Any other suggestions? Other than, of course, it will look much better when I'm not trying to watch 3 screens at once.
We have confirmed in the chat, Jessica.
Perfect, 4-1.
I'm gonna take a quick side note, just because it's on my conscience, and as we continue to work to make this space more equitable and inclusive, I think We probably shouldn't refer to small one-off gatherings as powwows. I just want to put that out there if that was used. And I would just ask that as we move forward, we are strategic about the language we use.
Thank you. Thank you, Andre. I was about to speak up on the same point, so really appreciate you speaking up.
All right. Next one, Bus on the Shoulder Rules Advisory Committee Letter, Emma and Beth. I read it. It was fabulous. What else do you guys have to say?
Have we got a response?
I think the response we got is that it's being shared with the Rules Advisory Committee. So we got our desired outcome. They have yet to meet. I think they're meeting in the next few weeks here, in early December. So we may have more of a response after their next committee meeting occurs.
And I believe that they only scheduled 3 meetings and this will be their 3rd meeting and then they will stand.
And I realized I don't think I've added the letter to our drive, so I will put it in today's meeting folder. And Jessica, I am happy to do that in the future. I just wanted to clarify roles.
Okay.
I found it in
Put
there.
it in there.
Yeah, I found it in there.
You know what? It is here.
Mhm.
Thank you. Jessica took care of it. So the 3 points that we had described as a committee last time that we kind of fleshed out a little bit more was safety for people walking and biking is of utmost importance. Parallel active transportation infrastructure should be built alongside all freeways, particularly where buses are driving on the shoulders. And there should be a feedback loop to evaluate ongoing implementation. And then we requested to hear back from them about the locations and if there are parallel routes and what the kind of feedback and evaluation process would be. So I want to say thanks to Beth, great partner in taking our committee discussion from last time forward and getting this submitted.
I love to edit. It's my favorite thing.
And I will say, I heard back from one of the staff people who has been working on that Rules Advisory Committee, and they were ecstatic to receive your letter. And the feedback that was both supporting transit and not being super niched in what is being supported, but providing really helpful safety considerations for the group. So it's definitely appreciated by staff. And they're planning on getting back to you after they have their next meeting. So thank you all from the staff perspective.
Excellent. And administrative updates, Jessica.
All right, so a couple of administrative things. From our last meeting, there was a request from the committee for information around stipends and what activities do those apply to. In the drive, there is a draft. And I put draft in capital letters and the watermark and the title and as many places as I could, because this is the living document. That I pulled together with some support based on some conversations with our Office of Social Equity and also our governor who manages our Equitable Engagement and Compensation Program, which is ODOT's hourly stipend program, as well as the governor's office that is managing implementation of the House Bill 2992 changes to what is and who can receive per diem for participating on governor appointed board and committees. So I'm gonna share my screen real quickly. To just go over some of the points. Hopefully you all can take a look at it and let me know if this addresses your main questions, concerns. But as a governor appointed committee, OBPAC has those 2 different programs that can support us to bring more people to the table to help inform this very important work and overcome that obstacle of unpaid time that keeps some people that is a systemic barrier for some people to be able to participate. So we've got this flow chart of, how do you figure out which program you're eligible for or should be participating in? Basically, I'm happy to help walk anyone through it. When you are appointed as a new committee member, there our forms that take you through all this. So everyone on the committee right now is all set up with all of their paperwork for whatever programs that they need to participate in to support their engagement. But let me know if you have any sort of changes in your financial situation and need to change up that paperwork, because we can do that. Basically, where we landed is if you are eligible for that statutory per diem, unless you decline compensation, ODOT is required to pay you that much for your participation in the committee. So therefore, it is really staff's preference that you participate in that program if you want to participate in a stipend program, because the EECP program is hourly and wouldn't, for a regular meeting, be getting you that minimum per diem amount that the agency is required to get you. And then we can just pay you through payroll, which is pretty easy.
Yeah.
EECP, I think is a really good option for folks who don't meet that income eligibility for the statutory payments, but still could use the help for participation in the committee. It is also a program that we can use to bring in resource members for working groups. Like as things evolve with our outreach to local bike ped advisory committees, it's a thing that we can use to help incentivize participation in that network building experience. If there is somebody with a particular expertise that you want to bring in for a working group, like somebody who is really familiar with affordable housing, homeless issues, which is something that has come up around this table, we can provide stipends to help make that happen. So there's information about those different programs in this memo, and really the biggie is at the end of just what is eligible and what is not eligible. So eligible activities do need to be part of your official duties as a committee member. So like meetings like today, meetings of, trying to think of the Oregon Transportation Plan Policy Advisory Committee that Mavis is sitting on as an official representative of OBPAC. And it does have to be an ODOT engagement activity, which means that it is someone from ODOT has invited you specifically to that meeting for you to provide your expertise on a topic. So those OTP meetings, or sometimes OBPAC members get invited to participate in evaluation panels for ODOT hiring, would count. What doesn't count is things that are just open to the general public, like open house or OTC meetings, if you're just kind of sitting in to observe and not on the agenda, and the unscheduled informal meeting times that are just preparing for the official meetings and working on some of our work plan things. With the thought being that the rates for those stipends for the formal meeting is kind of set to compensate for, understanding that there's prep time and travel time and things like that. So that's what's clarified in there, but definitely these are new programs, and we learn by asking questions. So if there's anything that's not clear from that guidance, feel free to reach out to me and we will figure it out. Just best if we figure it out before you participate in the activity. So everybody, if that stipend is something that you need to facilitate your participation, that you're provided. And this is all to say that if you are not eligible for a stipend, we still value your participation on the committee and welcome your participation in all the activities you want to participate in, and we'll listen to all of your feedback on equal level. So that's in there. The other piece, I gotta pull up my own copy of that. Agenda, sorry. So 2023 meeting calendar. This was in that email that I sent out, or thought I had sent out, but actually got to you all this morning. This is our last meeting that is officially on the calendar. We generally just sit down at this last meeting of the year and pencil in all of our meetings for the next year. So everybody's got them on their calendar and can hopefully plan around them as we get to 2023. I have put on here, and I will share this for remote folks as well. Oh my goodness, all of this on one screen is. So if we were to stick with our current calendar of meeting on the fourth Tuesday of odd months, primarily virtually, with one big in-person travel meeting in 2023, our schedule would look like what's shown here. So we'd have January 24th, March 28th. April, we will have a brief workshop for the Oregon Community Paths. That would be an off-cycle meeting to review those grant applications and make the official recommendation to the Oregon Transportation Commission on what is funded.
Question on that?
Yep.
Is that need to be formed? That one?
Yes, we do need to have quorum on that. So I do not have specifics from Alan on what part of April, but we could kind of, while everybody's got their calendars out, say any dates that, Susan, do you know?
I don't know, but if it needs to go to the OTC in May, it needs to be in the first half of April.
Okay. So I haven't had a chance to push Alan. Do you really need it? Could we get it done by March 28th? So that could be the March 28th meeting. So I'm going to try to push that we do that as the main agenda of March 28th without any additional meetings, but we might have to do kind of a hold for, we take March 28th for the big review all of the applications and how are they scored, what are the scenarios, and then have another brief meeting for once everybody's had time to kind of digest all of that. Just have a discussion about those scenarios and have that final vote. Is how we've done that in the past. So that's a TBD possibly in April for a brief workshop. May 23rd would be our normal May meeting, which there had been discussion of having the travel meeting in May and going to Phoenix, which was what we had planned for the travel meeting this summer and weren't really able to work out for a variety of different logistical reasons. July 25th, September 26th, and then November 28th would be our typical meeting. We often reschedule that to the first or second week of November, though, due to the frequency of folks traveling for Thanksgiving. So in 23, November 28th is not Thanksgiving week, but it is that week. It's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving where some folks are still kind of settling from travel. I guess.
I think that it looks fantastic. If anybody has any comments on those dates that just at this point, will not function, now's the chance. Hearing none, let Jessica know within a week if you have heartburn with any of these dates, and we will move forward. All right, next on your list.
Can you put them in the chat?
Yep.
Thanks.
The native land acknowledgements. Jessica.
Okay, so that is one more. Chat real quick. Also, just so everyone knows, if you direct message me, it is on the screen in the meeting room. So there had been discussion at OBPAC previously about desire to do native land acknowledgements at meetings. That was something that we did for a bit. With some template language that Hal Hagedorn, a previous chair, had put together. And we stopped doing because there was a request from the governor's office and ODOT tribal relations. Because there was a growing interest in tribal land acknowledgements, a lot of committees starting to do them. And while well-intentioned, some folks who were doing more harm than good with their land acknowledgements by having incorrect information that they were sharing and things like that. So they asked us to put those on hold while oh my goodness, I need to remember. While tribal relations and the governor's office worked on some common understanding of, from the perspective of the chairs of the 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon, what is the most appropriate way to do land acknowledgements? They have come up with some guidance that is linked to in the materials on the drive, and some general text that is kind of the agreed upon current template for if you want to do a land acknowledgement at a meeting. And then ODOT Tribal Affairs has a request form that you need to fill out if you want to do a land acknowledgement, just so that they can consult with the tribes on, this group would like to do a land acknowledgement. What kind of language would you like to see? And so basically just making sure that there is meat behind those words. It's not just something we're doing at the beginning of meetings to as a performative thing. So there is a process and a policy now that this committee can get together and discuss how they want to proceed with that. But if we do want to do land acknowledgements, there is that process that needs to be engaged in before meetings. Overall, the real preference is that for virtual and hybrid meetings that we not do land acknowledgements, because in the virtual environment, there is just so many different factors. And that we kind of stick to, like, if we're meeting in the Gorge and touring a section of the historic Columbia River Highway State Trail for a project, there's more than just the standard 9 federally recognized tribes of Oregon language, because there are tribes on the Washington side that also have affiliation and concerns that they want to work with ODOT to address in that project area. Or when we go to visit Mavis and ride the really amazing path that this committee has helped fund around Wallowa Lake, the Nez Perce tribe is very involved in issues around that path, because it goes through lands that they have historical, cultural claim on. Everybody recognizes it, but they're not a federally recognized tribe. In Oregon, they're federally recognized in Idaho. So just trying to reserve those for when we have meetings in physical places or that are
directly addressing tribal issues so that we're doing it right.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that information. I have next that we have a break, but we are ripping through this. So do we want to take our 10-minute break now and then come back and work on the work plan, which will eat all of our time up? Or do we have anything else that anybody wants to bring to the table at this moment?
I wanted to take a break and talk to.
All right, seeing nobody leaping up, we will take our 10-minute break. So we will be back here in 10 minutes, which is at 2:20. Later, Gators. Thanks.
We are back and thank you.
Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Oh, yep.
Thank you so much. Like 3 paragraphs in, Jeff.
Yeah. Okay. So super short version.
Yay, us.
Thank you, Leanne. And staffer needs a nap.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
What I'm just gonna go over for folks who are newer to the committee is just a review of what the committee accomplished from its work plan in 2021 to kind of get the gears turning for what you might want to put into your work plan for 2023 and 2024. So in the legislative policy side of things, there was Senate Bill 395, an update to the bike bill that we had lots of conversations about. As well as representation on ODOT advisory committees and funding for a jurisdictional transfer date. Second, there was a legislative concept that is now being advanced for the 2023 session that Kaz mentioned around expanding eligibility for safe routes to school for high schools and areas that are within 2 miles of schools rather than just 1 mile middle school and below, which is what we have right now. So that's something to consider for this upcoming session. On the ODOT policy adoption and implementation section of the work program, lots of meet and greets with the new executive leadership at the agency. So relationship building and FaceTime there. That has definitely been meaningful and we've heard about from the ODOT leadership side of things as well. Lots of thank you letters to OTC for
making more funding available for active transportation and public transportation when they have those discretionary decisions. As Emma mentioned, that mobility advisory committee coordination with folks participating on the charter working group and getting those new pedestrian high school representatives assigned to the MAT. TSAP update, that's the Transportation Safety Action Plan, is a important document for the agency that the committee reviewed and was engaged in, as well as the Oregon Transportation Plan Policy Advisory Committee that Mavis sat on. 2021 was a big year for funding advocacy with the 21-24 State Transportation Improvement Plan being designed by the Transportation Commission. So we had a historic increase in funding thanks to some great advocacy with OTC there. Our first round of Oregon Community Paths grants that OBPAC as a committee is solely responsible for making the recommendation of those grants to OTC. So that's why that's probably going to take up our March meeting in 2023. There was a new program to allocate 10 million in emergency pedestrian safety improvements on priority corridors. That in 2023, there'll probably be some conversations at ODOT about possibility of making that an ongoing program that OBPAC might want to be involved in, as well as informing safe routes to school and equity review of other public transportation division grant programs. We recruited a few new members, celebrated departure of a few, adopted updated bylaws that have some needed language updates from the old versions. Started with the stipend policies that we've now got fully implemented and have that clarification memo on, and hosted the first statewide workshop with the area commissions on transportation ped bike representatives, which we're now following up with that local bike ped advisory committee workshop in early 2023. So lots accomplished that we've continued to make big strides on in 2022.
EASIE.
Oh, that is. So there was the first 10 million in pedestrian safety rapid response funds. And along with that was provided by the Oregon Transportation Commission. And along with that funding, one of the requests was to have an outside consultant evaluate how can ODOT deliver pedestrian safety projects more rapidly than it does right now, and with more of an equity focus. And that consultant effort, we came up with the clever acronym of Equitable Active Safety Implementation Evaluation. Easy. So how can we make equitable safety improvements for people walking and biking easy?
Equitable active safety.
Implementation evaluation.
Okay.
It's our Patriot Act, basically, here at ODOT, active transportation. It's a very clever acronym. But hard to remember what all the specific letters are.
Okay.
All right, wonderful. Now Jessica has another piece of paper that I want her to pull up for you guys, take a look at. And this is our work plan. And so basically we have some focus areas and some goals and strategies within that. And then we have people that have decided to help with said sections, but I am not going to lead this conversation. Emma is. So as soon as Jessica gets that up, everybody will have a little bit more of an idea.
Emma, do you want me to share the full work plan or just the Word document that's got the?
Just preface for a moment before sharing anything.
Okay.
So I want to again celebrate that we have full membership. This is exciting. It hasn't been the case for the last
Ever.
couple years, I think pandemic period.
Yeah.
There's always been some sort of transition. And while we started this conversation briefly at our last meeting in September, I saw early on in that meeting that we had taken on more than was realistic to accomplish in our first in-person meeting, and having new members and having much needed equity conversation. So given that, when Mavis and I were doing our pre-meeting, we took a step back and said, okay, we have new members. We want to create space for new members to work on items that are meaningful to all of you, because it feels a whole lot more rewarding to be part of a committee when you're doing work and spending your time on things that you care about. And we see that we don't want to take on the whole world of possibilities, because then we're unlikely to accomplish very much if we're too scattered. And we have a number of things that are in progress that are important and have some good momentum behind them. So given all of this, I think where we're at with a proposal is to focus on a few items, look to some things that we're already doing well, continue to do those well and get them to completion. And then revisit the work plan. I was looking at our meeting schedule for next year and thinking maybe the May meeting, when we're in person, could be a good time to do another refresh. And at that point, maybe remove and add a bit more significantly. So that's the proposal. That being said, I want to make sure that new members, you really feel ownership and there's something here for you to kind of dig into and feel good about spending your time on. Given all that, we looked at, what were things that were coming up in conversation in September, and this short list on our agenda, which is the continued outreach, what's called network development. That's the outreach to the local bicycle and pedestrian and other active transportation committees, and supporting bike ped representation on ODOT committees, such as the Mobility Advisory Committee and others like that. That's one area where we already have a work group and there's great momentum. So it would feel kind of weird to take that off of our work program, but it could use some more refinement and definition perhaps. Funding programs. This is something that we as a committee are privileged to and required to do some of these things. So administering the Oregon Community Paths funding decisions, being engaged with the Safe Routes to Schools, weighing in on the new Great Streets program, the Ped Bike Strategic. That is really important to accomplishing the policies set out in the Oregon Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan and fulfilling our mission as a committee. Then there's this topic around, I'm going to call it leadership support and I think advocacy. So this is relationship building. While the network development's more outward and grassroots oriented, I see this leadership support and advocacy as more liaising with the governor's office, the legislature, the Oregon Transportation Commission, rules advisory committees, those who are setting the policy and have positions of power to influence the outcomes for people walking and biking in our state. And then the last item here is committee health. So this includes supporting new committee members to be well established and have the support that you need to be successful. We have talked about looking at the membership as a whole. I'm glad that we have 8 committee members now, but we've had discussions in the past about maybe increasing membership or adding some additional work groups. We do have some people who are contributing to OBPAC efforts who are not full members of OBPAC. They're just helping on specific topic areas. So those are the types of things that we could look at within committee health, but there's also space there for other items that committee members are saying, hey, we need some time and attention and some care spent on these items so we can be more successful and more resilient as a committee. So I think the hope with this is to, looking at those 4, see if there's anything that is severely missing in your eyes. I'm looking to the different numbers, both online and here. And is there something, like, is there enough here where you feel like there's an area that you'd like to contribute and support with? Because as I said, we really want to make sure that there's space for you to get your desires and passions aligned with the work of the full committee.
I just have a question on the third one. That maybe you're going to go into. I'm sure you are. How? The question, how do you want to do this leadership support and education? Letters, sitting on other committees, going to talk to ODOT people? I don't know.
There are a lot of tools in the toolbox for accomplishing that, and where we're about to head after this is figuring out, okay, given if these are the areas that we're going for, who wants to work on what? And then once we've figured out who wants to work on what, having those individuals further develop, well, what does this look like? Up until this point for leadership support and advocacy, it has looked like writing letters to OTC. It's looked like public comment to the Oregon Transportation Commission. It's looked like the letter that we just did to the Rules Advisory Committee. On Bus on Shoulders, it has looked like inviting Director Strickler to our meetings and having conversations with him during our committee meetings. And it has also looked like the most recent meeting that I had with the ODOT executives regarding the Mobility Advisory Committee, just to give you some examples of what has this been consisting of. But the how is yet to be fully defined for going forward.
The thing that I'm seeing that is missing in there is the equity bit, which that has been a huge focus this last year or so, and it is not there. And is that something that we want to not make a priority? Or are we smushing it into one of the others?
One of the things that this committee had discussed a few years ago when there was the last workshop around the work plan was previous versions of the work plan had equity as a standalone goal. And it tended to get kind of overlooked compared to the other goal areas when we came back and did our report back on what progress have we made on different things in the work plan. So the approach that was taken for the last work plan was to try to use an equity lens in all of the different areas of the work plan rather than have it be a standalone thing. So one of the things we could do once we get those focus areas kind of nailed down is, as you know, what the committee has capacity and is excited to work on, because the other stuff, that's what you have staff for. Once we get those areas nailed down, what we could do in the future is take those equity lens questions that Erica McAlpin, our Assistant Director for Social Equity, presented to the group at your last meeting, and kind of do a deep dive on the focus area and those equity lens questions to see if we might refine it.
Okay, just as long as we're not, it's one of those that we've spent so much time on it. I don't want it to get. But
It's not a done deal. It's on.
I feel like it's right. It's about to come to fruition. I would hate to like toss it out. Anyway, okay.
So I think it's something that previously this group has had kind of a group agreement to hold each other accountable to make sure we're considering that as we work on the focus areas.
Perfect. Okay.
I really appreciate that you brought that up, and I was thinking integrate it throughout, but I'm curious if there's something when you said about to come to fruition, what was on your mind, and if that needs to be specifically called out and incorporated.
So the way that I see it, and I feel like ODOT is doing such a great job looking at all the different modes and being like, oh, so not everybody has a car, whether they choose to or can't drive or whatever. I feel like that is progressing and it is becoming the thing. And to me, the equity bit where you're taking everybody through all the modes, the 8 to 80 lens or the health lens, that those lenses are finally being applied to our transportation system. And I want to keep pushing that button. I don't want that button to go away.
And looking at folks online, I'd love to hear from you. Are these 4 areas resonating? Are there missing pieces? What are your thoughts? Lauren?
I agree with Mavis. I think because equity has been such a huge topic, not only in ODOT and Oregon, but throughout the entire United States, really, that each one of these areas, we should have that lens. Everything that we do should include that lens at all times. I like the focus areas. I like having, kind of keeping the same themes throughout, and maybe just changing some of the work plan to expand on those themes. I do see specifically under focus area 3 that there is some equity that we're looking at in the 3rd column, I, F, are still hanging out there. But the other thing, somebody mentioned like it was going to be 169 years before we got to a place where, what was that
Everything's funded.
that everyth's funded?
Yep. That we have a complete walking, biking network on ODOT, urban highways.
Okay, so that's a long time away, and I appreciate that that's going to happen for my children. Is this a group that could work on advocating for the pedestrians, and not advocating for the pedestrians necessarily, I don't know how to say it, but to work with the pedestrians and the bicyclists to ride and walk as safely as possible? Like, without us creating that safe space, can we train or, I don't know, make signage or whatever it is to help them be safe in what we have right now? We don't have a lot of funding that allows for tools, like safe helmets or safe bicycles, that are maintained properly and that kind of thing. So somebody was mentioning how many people have been killed or struck by vehicles. Well, a lot of times it seems like we don't distinguish between the accidents that are really caused by vehicles or the road safety, and which ones are caused maybe by the pedestrian or the bicyclist because they jumped out into traffic or weren't riding safely themselves. So
I
sort of
would
looking at
say-
it from that.
I would say there's a couple things that we have already addressed a little bit of this, and I think it's a great thing for us to continue on. The Safe Routes to School, it has an education section of it, and one of our committee needs to be on that committee as well. Currently, that position is held by me, but of course, I am always welcome for somebody else to jump in. And then Jessica, I believe, had a lot to do with the bike handbook, the bicycle handbook. Was that you?
Yeah, so that is, ODOT does do user education as part of its active transportation programming. It doesn't tend to come to this group quite as often as it goes to, we have a separate committee that is the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee that Heidi Manlove, who's our ped bike safety program manager over in DMV and traffic reports to quite a bit. So there are some things that we produce. One is the Oregon bicycling manual that we did a pretty big overhaul of a year or two ago, but is always something this group can be engaged in updating and modernizing more. There's other publications that we have that are on our website that either my side of the program or Heidi puts together for a variety of different safety messaging campaigns. And yeah, it's kind of one of those, if there's something this group thinks we need to have materials or a campaign around, we can make that happen and work that into the program for staff to do that into the work.
Is that kind of what you're thinking, Lauren, or did you have more vision?
I think I was just thinking, of playing the other side of the track on, we're looking so much at how to make the roads more safe, and we have to continue doing that, and making it, fighting, I guess, for that position where, the big truckers are taking up most of it. And yes, I do agree that Safe Routes to School has that position, but they come into the schools, a lot of them come into the schools and they teach them. On this other side, we have these materials available, and there's not going to be a lot of adult bicyclists or pedestrians that are going to come seeking it. So, maybe having those types of rodeos or whatever for the larger community when they want to bike around areas that are congested by traffic, and teach them how to be. I don't know how. You're not going to put me out there to teach them because I don't know how. But how do we lower the risk?
Okay, we will put something to do with that on the list that Emma is frantically typing on. Kaz, did you have something to say?
Yes, I did. Just a little plug for the Innovative Mobility Program microgrants, which allow for the purchase of safety equipment, including bike helmets and high visibility gear, but also for funding for events like bicycle training or sort of traffic islands, things like that. So funding has recently become available, and just in view of Lauren's comment, I just wanted to highlight that we do now have that capacity.
And where do I find that?
What's it called
We'll
again?
drop it into the chat.
Okay, thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
And he'll be talking a little bit more about that innovative mobility program with the grant program updates that we've got. That's, he said.
Another subject that maybe can just be incorporated into these 4 big goals is taking into consideration all the new kinds of cycling, motorized bikes, pedal assisted bikes, rentals, short-term rentals, all that stuff that's happening, mostly in cities, but smaller towns are starting to grapple with it too, and don't know. The police, like are in Newport, the police department called me and we talked about like, where should these bikes be? Should they be allowed on sidewalks or not? So I guess the overriding thing would be just new modes. Kind of like equity, kind of just something to think about in all the decisions we make.
And that is something that there are a few different tables at ODOT that are having conversations around how do we provide guidance on that, we haven't really had somebody at the OBPAC table that's been super excited about being the champion for that, or that conduit between the staff doing that work and the committee. But there are opportunities there if there is somebody who is excited to take that on as a lead.
Are you doing some sort of model code?
There is not a model code that I'm aware of being worked on, but there is a mobility devices work group that is some DMV, active transportation and safety folks who are working on updating that. Just how does our existing rule set around bicycle, e-bike, everything else apply to one-wheelers and hoverboards and the expanding variety of mobility devices for folks with some sort of disability as well. So that's kind of where we're at.
Andre, is that something you would be interested at? I know that I haven't attended the e-bike stuff as ritualistically as I should have, but I saw you there the other day.
Yeah, I'm having fun. I'm doing a lot of e-bike work in my work life. So definitely interested in policy. And I also Mavis really appreciate the equity concern that you brought up and about how we can be integrating that into all of our work. And so I would love to see how we do actually apply it, if that's going through each category that we have set out and really making clear goals. I think that could be really cool. But one thing that I'm interested in specifically, and I don't know how much the group is, but I think it's really broadening the net of who's captured in the bicycle and pedestrian conversations, because I think we still see a real lack of diversity in these spaces. And I think that's something that, as the Oregon sort of central group on that discussion, I think we should be really moving forward on those conversations and thinking about how are we incorporating and getting new voices and getting new communities to feel like they're a part of the bicycling and pedestrian community, especially when you recognize the history of the state of Oregon as well, and just how exclusionary it is inherently. So I'm putting that on the table, and I think it could be explored from many angles, but I wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
See. So Aaron, oh, sorry.
Oh, we'll go to Aaron in a second here. I just wanted to comment on Lauren and Beth's ideas. I think those are great topics, and I'm wondering if they might fit into the local outreach, because I think we are well positioned as a state committee to connect resources that exist at the state level to people who are working in the local communities. I also think about Andre's most recent comment and how I've spent the last few weeks doing some visioning for how to expand a community cycling center in the Eugene Springfield area that's specifically serving underserved populations. And they need things like the innovative mobility micro grants to be able to support their growth and the service provided on the ground. But I don't see OBPAC as an 8-person committee doing that ground level work. So I'm just putting that out there as maybe there's some of these resources like Oregon Friendly Driver, like the League Certified Cyclist Traffic Skills 101 courses that are taught, connecting the resources to the needs in the communities. And some of that might be part of the local outreach.
I will also put out there that one of the things that Roberto is going to be helping out with, I think already came up, is the need for an update to our Ped Bike program webpage. We did a pretty major overhaul of it 3 or 4 years ago, and I have not really had the capacity to do that. So if there is interest from the committee of what are the resources that folks are needing and how to improve that as a one-stop shop, like we have a lot of flexibility around how that website can look and what sort of resources it provides. I'm not sure if that gets at any.
Sure. I'd like to touch on both Andre and Lauren's bit again. The people that come in the shop, I have both ends of the spectrum, right? I have my guys that are like lycred up and they're going for their adventure and they're just wonderful people and generally have a fair amount of money. And then I have the other end of the spectrum where these guys or girls, their form of transportation is their bike. And some of them do have money, some of them don't have money, some are electing to do everything by bike, and a lot of them are not. And the education piece is really key when they can't drive and they were poor at driving and they're even worse at riding a bike, there needs to be a connection there where that information is getting. Because some people make everybody who rides a bike look really bad. And a soapbox.
Aaron, we haven't heard from you. What are you thinking?
I really like these kind of focus areas. I feel like they're general enough where we have a lot of liberty within them to focus in on different areas, but at the same time, they're all distinct. Something I did want to kind of just mention is like, I know like the next step is like figuring out who's going to be like the leads of these areas and then like various interests. I think while that's really important to get things done, I just want to like express my interest of like having the ability to move within the different focus areas, just because, you know, at a meeting, you're like, I'm really interested in this, doesn't mean that you aren't able to kind of move around, because honestly, like all of these areas sound really interesting to me. And I know I'm gonna have to like pick one to focus on, but having that ability to move around, I feel like is important. Also just avoids a little bit of burnout. I know some of us are like super passionate about something, we just keep going, but at the same time, it's really important to like realize like if you're working on something for a long time, like it can be difficult. So I think moving around could be good for us. And I just want to kind of have that door open. I know like we're not gonna like force everyone to reshuffle every couple months, but having that opportunity to be really useful. And then just like harping on what Andre said about like the equity lens, I know Mavis brought it up as well. I think we have to like try to set, you know, specific goals. Can't just say to look at things through an equity lens. I feel like I really like Andre's idea of like looking, you know, like once we have these areas ironed out, like looking at every single one of them and like point out exactly how we're going to reach those goals, I think is really important. And then really harping on the idea of like outreach again, like I feel like the committee as a statewide committee has a lot of room to grow in that area, and just like, you know, expanding our reach, and that can be like through like outreach, you know, like the outreach we're doing now through BPAC. So like the, you know, point that Andre was making of just like expanding that network would be really great, and just like even just bringing forth a committee and having us like just know people know that we're here is super important. So I really like all these focus areas, and I feel like there's definitely a lot of like room for, you know, meshing out more specific goals within them.
Thanks, Aaron. That may be our segue into figuring out where we want to go, but I want to hear from Dell, and I also want to acknowledge that the flexibility is important. I think for today, I'm of the mindset of thinking now till May, which is just a few meetings. And in May, I would hope that as a committee, we could revisit where we're at. So that's not that much time. So maybe we're thinking about, okay, if we're expressing interest, this is expressing interest for the next, you know, 5 or 6 months, not I'm on this item until I term off of OBPAC 8 years from now, or however long your term is. Del, what are you thinking?
What am I thinking? I noticed a number of references to e-bikes here, and Dave just posted something on the chat here about our 30-mile-an-hour e-bikes safe, and I agree they're definitely not. And this comes up in our local PBAC meetings a lot. You know, what can we do about? I mean, e-bikes come in many different flavors, and it's hard to make rules or recommendations that are all inclusive. And a lot of it is the rider more than the machine. So, you know, and that's true with human powered bikes even too, but yeah, the overpowered e-bikes are really more like motorcycles and should be regulated as such, I think. They do come in what, class A, B, and C, and I think the class C ones are the powerful, fast ones. I don't have that backwards, but I know a lot of local regulations do specify classes of e-bikes that are allowed on various places. I think the state parks even, but who's able to enforce that? I mean, when you see e-bike, how do you even know what class it is? And I think we spend a lot of time on worrying about infrastructure, and what we really need is a little bit more education and a whole lot more enforcement. You know, we have a lot of laws that are put in there to increase safety, and we don't have any enforcement of them. And distracted driving, speeding. I think we should emphasize being able to get a little bit more enforcement on these things. Anyway, I'm still getting my feet wet in here. I don't know for sure what I'll be interested in. You know, obviously this, I mentioned that the local ped bike committees are of great interest to me, and sure other things will come up. I also serve on the Oregon Scenic Bikeways Committee, and that's something that's just getting restarted after a pretty long COVID hiatus. And we just had a meeting last week with Clint, who's the new director of Bank of Oregon. And I think, I don't know how much this committee would have to do with scenic bikeways, but I know ODOT is very much very much into the Oregon Scenic or the Oregon Coast Bikeway, and don't know. I haven't heard any discussion of it in any of these meetings yet, but I do think it's something that we should address and promote for tourism. And I have heard about a couple of fatalities out there relatively recently too, and that's always hard to hear.
All right, thank you. How are we doing?
I think we're doing well. This was really great to hear from everyone. It sounds like we have good areas, and we have some additional topics that could weave into these areas, specifically the local outreach. I've seen on my local regional active transportation committees and being at community meetings just yesterday talking about paths, a lot of interest in, okay, there's more diversity of the users on the path system in particular, and how is that safety and conflict playing out, and could the state play a role in more consistency at a statewide level? So I think that is a conversation that is automatically coming to the local committees, and might be something with the gathering to discuss how might OBPAC support the locals in setting that policy, or is there policy that we just need to channel down to let them know here's resources that are consistent statewide? This is an implementation toolkit, if you will. I'm hearing from Dell interest in the outreach. I wanted to kind of map out the different work groups that we have right now, and if we need an additional work group, just see who would like to be involved in what the things are and who wants to be involved in each of those. So I think we can use the document that is in our, it's 5.4, 23-24 focus areas. That's in our meeting folder. And then I'm going to add a few more down at the bottom, and we can build to make sure this is more inclusive of representation. Oh, that doesn't look right for formatting. Sorry. Well,
Yeah, the bullets do not seem to want to really cooperate in Google Docs right now for some reason.
Okay. So I think within network development, there's a work group. Funding. I think there's a MAC. So there's an outreach work group. There's a MAC work group. We might establish some work groups for these other areas if we see that those would be helpful. And then there's I'm trying to add at the bottom is representation. So a number of different places where OBPAC has representatives and just listing out who's there. Mavis said she's open to switching out on the Safe Routes Advisory Committee. So that's why I have some question marks of, who might want to serve in that role. Is everyone able to see this document? Okay, it's shared. Thank you, Jessica. I'm doing great with the hybrid meeting. Figuring this out with the different screen. Okay, so let's just do a go around of all the OBPAC members and express where you would like to focus some time and support for the next now through May. So we have Outreach Work Group, MAC Mobility Advisory Committee Work Group. We have the funding topic area, leadership support and education slash advocacy, and committee health. And then there's also these representation items that I just wanted to capture. So Safe Routes Advisory Committee is probably better under funding. Oh, wow, this is really weird formatting. There we go.
We also had one other one. Yeah. But no. What was the committee I was on that we gave away a whole bunch of money?
That is, so you're Safe Routes to School.
Yes.
There's the Parks and Recreation.
That one.
Local government grants. And that is an area, as a staffer, I need to figure out how do we deal with all the OPRD committees, Oregon Parks and Rec committees that OBPAC members are also helping support. For the most part with the funding programs, I feel like those are generally the full committee kind of participates in those, other than the Safe Routes to School that has its full separate advisory committee. Great Streets, Robin did come to the last meeting, and
Robert
asked for a representative, and Robert was going to continue to sit in on that and report back to the committee in a ex officio sort of capacity.
Do all these advisory committees have Zoom components?
Yeah, for the most part, I cannot think of any committees that we have that are going back to in-person meetings on the regular.
Just call on each person, go down the list and I'll record.
All right, here we go. I will call out your name and you'll say, hey, that sounds really interesting to me, or let me think about it and I'll get back to you later. So we're going to start with Beth.
I'm interested in, well, I should stay with the local since I'm the local rep to OBPAC. So local outreach. And if you want me to be on a second, I'd be interested in the Parks and Rec. It's on to whatever things they're doing. Do you want a Parks and Rec?
Well, Mavis has been the OBPAC representative on specifically Parks and Rec's local government grant program.
Okay.
Which, do you know what their timeline is for their next?
I don't have to be.
We just kicked out a round. So it'll probably be next year.
So that is a couple-day workshop once a year kind of time commitment.
It's more like it's a week commitment.
Wow.
It's big.
I don't have time for that.
Like all these others, like the Safe Routes and everything, like staff tabulates it. That one, you tabulate it. And so it is a commitment.
So
it could also be a wait until the next round comes up
Sure.
and then have a conversation about with Parks and Rec about increasing accessibility to their process.
It's been intense.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
But I'll keep you in mind.
it's a little difficult for somebody who isn't full-time staff of an agency to participate. in this. I don't know
Yeah.
how.
I can't do it for a week.
It was lazy. Okay, anything else that you see up there that you're like, that's pretty fun?
Not right off. Why don't we do?
Okay,
Animals.
Aaron, what do you think?
I've been pretty involved with like recruiting, so I'd be willing to help hash out like committee health, more specific goals within that, and then also leadership support and education advocacy. Also, I have a class, so I'm gonna have to leave a little early, so I'll send a message in a chat when I have to go.
All right, thank you. Andre,
I would say the two that stand out the most interest to me are funding programs and leadership support.
any specific funding programs?
Great question. I would say Great Streets as it emerges, definitely. But I guess, Robert's going to that. So yeah, I'm flexible on that. I just, yeah.
Now, it's kind of throwing you under the bus with the e-bike thing. Is that something you're
Yeah,
interested in?
absolutely. Oh, I love e-bikes. I absolutely love e-bikes. So anything e-bike, definitely sign me up. I'm down to represent.
I just know that I personally, I see a whole bunch coming down the pipe
Mm-hmm.
and I always like to be proactive instead of reactive.
Totally.
I see that Karen's joined us. Thank you, Karen, for your comment. We don't throw people under the bus in the Public Transportation Division. Sorry, Andre, I was taking notes and I think I missed something. Was it Great Streets that interests you?
Yeah, but then I saw that I forgot that we had sent Robert as our representative. So just I think funding programs in general, and I think that could be worked out as necessary.
Perfect.
And I'll figure out how to type the accent E on my computer because I want to do that for you.
I
Oh,
appreciate it.
Jessica's
No
got me
worries.
covered. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Beth.
Me,
Oh, sorry.
other woman.
I'm going on my list. Lauren.
She put in the chat that her connection was a little spotty.
Okay,
She's happy to be kind of wherever.
Okay, we will catch up with you, Lauren. Dell.
I think you already got me up there pretty good.
Okay.
I need my name up there 3 times already.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, thanks.
You figured out there's our system.
Fantastic. Okay, anybody have anything else that they would love to say about the work plan before we continue on?
I'm putting us under leadership support, education advocacy, just as chairs. I think that
Yeah.
Yes,
some of the things that we're called to kind of fills that realm.
that is perfect.
Anyone interested in swapping out with Mavis on safe routes, or would you like to continue if there's no one else interested? What are your?
I will continue, but I will totally, since we have so many new people, throw it out there.
Lauren is also on the Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee.
Oh, true. You're both on there.
You could just pre up some.
Lauren?
She had to leave.
She had to
But she
leave.
said she's happy to do whatever. So do you want to stay on in addition to Lauren or?
I think we just need one there.
Can I, this is Leanne, I'm sorry, can I make a quick announcement is that Lauren's actually stepping off of the Safe Routes Committee. I think that she's feeling overcommitted and someone else from the Coquel tribe is going to join, but it won't be Lauren, and that will happen in January.
All right, I will continue to be there.
Sorry, Mavis.
Thanks, Mavis. All good. Even if you're not there, I will be.
Burn.
Okay. Anything else?
No more openings?
Oh, there's always more openings.
I
but-
think we have some coverage for everything, which is fantastic. Except for the 1 week commitment, which we may have some comments about accessibility of such a commitment. But that doesn't need to be dealt with today. This is looking good. Is there any other representation that OBPAC has served on that I haven't thought of and is not listed?
That is all I can think of. That folks are currently working on. There are always things that folks come up with as new programs and they decide, well, they inform us after they've done their rulemaking that they put an OBPAC representative as a required representation on their committee.
Few meetings in when they're, this will be better be there.
Or just decided that is representation they would like on the new program. So we'll work through those as they arise. Because there's always the kind of the cycle of ODOT planning documents like the Oregon Transportation Plan. I guess that one is not on here specifically.
I have, I had it. It got deleted when I fixed the formatting. Thank you. Oh, no, it is. It's right down here.
So, okay. Oh, yep. I just did not scroll down far enough. So I think that covers it. The one thing I heard a lot of comments from folks around education and kind of new mobility issues. Are those items that you want to kind of see what comes out of the local outreach work group? And have me loop you in when there's things that the agency is working on around that new mobility topic? Or
Since I brought up new mobility, I'll respond.
okay.
But anybody else is welcome to too, but what you two described about have it be part of outreach. Decisions made as part of outreach works for me.
So I don't know if you want to put just kind of a e-bike new mobility subcategory under network development. That's Beth and Andre.
Yeah, I have it down at the bottom, but I can move that.
See, I just need to keep scrolling.
Is there more down? New mobility folds into local outreach for now.
I just was seeing that might inform some of our Oregon Community Paths funding pieces, so I was thinking at the representation at the bottom might be more appropriate since it could cross over multiple sections.
I'm gonna.
Perfect. There we go. There we go. Okay. Wow, that formatting is not working. Man.
Is there anything under new mobility? That's the last thing.
No, that's the end of the.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Just check.
We are seeing the end of the list on the screen.
Yeah.
Making the technology work for us. Great, so we have leads for different, or people working on these different topics. What has worked well in the past is to wipe our work plan free, put these areas in, and then have the folks who are interested in each topic area convene between now and our next meeting and write out a draft of here's a goal, review with the equity lens questions. So Jessica, if you could reshare those with us for our homework. To make sure that for every single section of our work plan, we're viewing it with the equity lens and saying, how are we furthering equity and reducing disparities through each of these different things that we're taking on as a committee? And because we're meeting when's our next meeting date?
It is January 23rd, I believe. Sure.
I would say if possible, if you can meet with your buddies and spend some time in the document before the end of December holidays and transition to the new year, that would be great, because then we could have the first couple weeks of January to go into the document and actually review it to be prepared to have our group discussion at our next meeting in January. So tentative deadline, because I know that those can be helpful to get things done of say like December 20, early 20s into the specific day, but that's my proposal.
So you're
Love the
saying
work.
these are the main goals, and then you want us to make action items, basically,
Yeah.
for the year.
Yeah.
Do you want?
And if you want to define the goal a little bit more of, what would local outreach work group being successful look like
Mhm.
by May of 2023, here's what we have accomplished.
The acknowledgement that you have a January, March, and May meeting. And March is pretty much taken up with community paths. So
Right.
in 2 meetings, what would you want to be able to accomplish?
Or it can be longer vision, but I think having that focus of what are we doing the next little while is helpful to free up the conversation in May to say, okay, do we want to take some things off and do more of a refresh?
Okay. Anybody have anything else to say about the work plan? Excellent. Moving on to the grant programs update. We are just a smidge ahead. Do we have anybody online that can be doing Great Streets?
I just have the talking points from folks. So how we were gonna do this one, so that we could focus on the exciting new thing is, it is up in the. Where did I put this? Susan, did I give you?
I have them.
Yeah. Do you want to give?
Sure. I think I saw Robin on, did I see Robin on the?
Yes,
call?
Robin's on.
Okay.
What we were gonna do is quick bullet point overview of the first 3 programs that the committee's most familiar with, and then have most of the time for Kaz to provide overview of the innovative mobility program.
Okay. So you want me to do Great Streets, Safe Routes to School and Oregon Community Paths? Okay, so Robin, I'm just gonna hit some Great Streets bullets real quick, and if I hit anything or if I misrepresent, please, I'll make a pause afterwards. But just for efficiency's sake, I'll run through these. So Oregon Community Paths, I started this earlier, and so now is the appropriate time. Thank you. So we had a pre-application that was due on the 31st of October, and we received 61 pre-applications with a request of 96 million. So getting close up there to 100 million in requests for $37 million in funds. There's a period right now of a review of these pre-applications from an eligibility standpoint and communicating back to the applicant. And with a full application due on the 31st of January. Here, actually, so Alan has that it's May of 23 that he needs, by May of 23, that he needs OBPAC to recommend projects to the Oregon Transportation Commission for approval for funding, looking at latest a July date for the commission to approve the project so that grants can be executed in 2023. So this is really exciting. It's the second round of this program. And over the last couple of years, we've been able to funnel more discretionary federal dollars into this program as well. Regarding Great Streets, Karen is presenting on the Great Streets program to the Oregon Transportation Commission on the 17th, this program update. Those materials are available on the OTC website right now. The regions submitted a pre-application on November 1st, and the final applications will be due on the 23rd. Right now, the project review team, which is a mix, will be a mix of ODOT and non-ODOT representatives, and we will recruit for 4 open seats during November to be filled by interested community representatives. I'm going to pause. Robin, do you want to add anything to my brief update?
I do not. I think you've got the brief update. Thanks, Susan.
No problem. Our other program, Safe Routes, our other grant program that will be going out, Safe Routes to School. So the Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee is actually meeting on Thursday The ODOT has received over $80 million in requests for $26 million in funds. So you'll see a little bit of a trend here in terms of the oversubscription. The Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee will be meeting on the 17th. Mavis, you'll be there, right? To recommend roughly kind of an estimate of 20 to 30 projects to the OTC for approval on their consent agenda in January. Additionally, the Safe Routes to School Advisory Committee is recruiting new members through a process that we use an application and form and selection committee. 8 new members are to be added, covering 6 who are moving on and 2 new youth members. I think Leanne is on the call also. I'm going to pause to see if she has anything to add.
Actually, no, I don't know. I don't want to turn my video on. I don't really have much to add. Thank you for covering it all. There was mostly there was a great Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day event today in Salem that Heidi sent me a bunch of really awesome pictures for. So if you have some time and everyone's done with the meeting, I can share some great Safe Routes to School, Walk to School Day celebrating Ruby Bridges this morning if there's time at the end. But that's my other big update.
Leanne,
Yeah.
how many on the committee when it's full?
We have in rule, it says we have to have a minimum of 15 people. Right now we have 13 and we are planning to add 9. And the idea will be that we're going to over add members. And then as people come off and have other things going on, we'll do a recruitment every year or every other year to get us back over 15 again. And the exciting thing about this recruitment is that we will be adding 3 new members under the age of 18. Likely, our committee is going to talk about it this Thursday, but we're on that path. And we will be adding 1 youth alternate position. So we're creating that new position so that if youth aren't able to attend, we'll have an alternate. And we will be using the first 6 months of next year to do some kind of intensive scheduling compromising to figure out how we're going to do our how adding these new voices, people who aren't necessarily transportation professionals, where this can be part of their job onto the committee. So a lot of exciting things happening on the Safe Routes to School committee, and would be happy to we're happy to of course work with Mavis, but also I'd be happy to talk to anyone on this committee that's interested in learning more about it. If Mavis is looking to swap out, it's a really fun committee, really in my opinion very, very rewarding. So happy to talk with anybody who has more questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Okay, anything? All right, and now that Susan did that wonderful reading of all the bullet points, I did get those added back into the drive. Anyone who wants to go back and revisit any of the staffing or grant program updates that she provided, it is in the drive. 3.1 staffing and grant program updates.
Great.
Cover Innovative Mobility Program. Did I miss it?
Gaz,
You're up.
All right. So we are wrapping up we have wrapped up the engagement on the Innovative Mobility Program. And I'm just finalizing the report, which will be published in the next couple of days. Wanted to highlight some of the things that really jumped out during our engagement. So I think the first thing to say is there is clearly deep need across Oregon. And although living on a fixed or low income was something that almost all of those who responded or articulated that need had in common, apart from that, it really crosses all demographics, race and gender, ability, geography. So other than low income, we saw that folks tended to have low income when they articulated need, but apart from that, they could come from any walk of life, any part of the state. And the needs in some areas are very deep and very acute. We know that community-based organizations experience significant barriers to working with state and federal funds, and that ODOT is seen as uniquely difficult to navigate. So in order for the program to be successful, it will need to invest significantly in capacity building so folks can administrate the funds, and then also helping them to navigate our structures. We've already taken some steps to begin to do that. One of the issues that also came up is that folks working for organizations, especially smaller organizations working with communities who've been marginalized, really struggle to compete against larger organizations, perhaps dealing with communities that have not quite as acute need, but that might have grant shops, the ability to buzz out a load of applications very quickly. And so as we design the application process, we will need to ensure that we have systems in place to make sure that we're really focusing on finding the need and then helping folks to turn that into an application. The other thing I think that really needs to be highlighted is there are major information gaps between those who understand how to deliver a transportation program and those who understand the needs of historically excluded communities. So again, we come back to this thing of needing to build capacity, and we can't just open out this program to all comers and be confident that it will be going to the populations that have the most need. We will need to invest in the systems and structures that will enable that. And we are indeed doing so. So we held we put out a request for information as a prelude to a request for proposal. That was open through September and part of October. We had about 25 people come to, or 25 organizations come to our stakeholder event, and we received 6 written submissions, several of which are of extremely high quality. So people are definitely responding to the catalyst that we've put out into the community. And then I think the other key thing is partnership working with other government entities, transportation providers, and state entities is going to be really, really important. So OHA was identified as an early partner. DLCD has a rural transportation equity program, which focuses on the planning side. So for example, an application where the IMP paid for the delivery and DLCD's program paid for the planning, that would be the kind of synergy that we were really looking to create. Hate the word synergy, is appropriate, I think, under these circumstances. And then I think the other bit of news is that we have the program guidance finalized for the micro grants. And we will start assessing the 30+ applications we've already received tomorrow. Oh, I didn't spot you were there, Maddie. Glad to have you with us. So yeah, the program is moving forward. We're learning a lot as we go, and we're really trying to find ways of squaring all of the various circles when it comes to equity. And the last thing that I wanted to do is to give Dorian a proper opportunity to introduce herself. She said hello at the top of the meeting, but we are very, very lucky to have her. And I just wanted to allow her to tell you all a little bit about herself.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, yes. Great. I'm just going to take a minute or two to tell you all a little bit more about myself, something other than hello. Again, my name is Dorian Pacheco. My background is in multilingual community engagement and in evaluation. So I come from a low-income immigrant multiracial family, and a lot of my early work was in the nonprofit sector, doing community organizing and community engagement. I then worked in local government, including at the Seattle Department of Transportation, doing program evaluation. And for the last year and a half, I've been a performance auditor at Multnomah County. And a lot of my work there has focused on evaluating government services to ensure accountable, equitable, and transparent services. I'm really excited to be the Innovative Mobility Program Manager and to make sure that Historically underserved and marginalized communities have investments allocated to them in creative and intentional ways. I look forward to updating you all on the micro grant applications. I am still being onboarded and don't have email access just yet, but I'll make sure that you all get my contact information as soon as I have it too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As are you done? You're talking.
I want to check if there's any questions before we move on.
No, it sounds very exciting. Thank you so much. All right, we are now to the roundtable member discussion. So I have something, but I'll wait. Anybody else have anything?
On the agenda, we have the Van Buren Bridge update. I think staff are going to provide a little update on that.
Let me pull that up while you.
Round table first, anybody?
I did have a quick roundtable, just talking to some folks that knew that I sat on OBPAC. And I was just hoping to get some more information about ODOT's marketing campaign about pedestrian lighting. There were some concerns that the way it was framing was putting a lot of the burden on the victims of traffic violence. And so I let them know that I would sort of put that out to this group and see if we couldn't get some more information about sort of where the ideas for that campaign were generated, and, you know, if they're reaching the outcomes they want to get, or why like the decision was made to go down a path of focusing on the vulnerable population as opposed to drivers. And so wanted to put that out there into the group and just see if ODOT staff could support me in sort of getting more information about that campaign.
Yeah, definitely. Could you provide a little bit more details on which campaign, Andre?
Yeah. Yep. Give me 1 second. I can pull it up exactly. So right now, the ad that was spotted was on TriMet buses, and it says day or night, no matter the weather, make sure to look out for each other. And it says share the road, the way to go. So I don't know if that's like the name of the campaign. It's yeah.
So that's kind of the tagline for ODOT's transportation safety education ads that come out of our transportation safety office.
Okay.
So that's Heidi Manlove, who I mentioned earlier, who's our head bike safety program manager in that office, who runs those campaigns, and could invite her to come. She's been kind of on the agenda request list for a while of having her come to just talk a little bit more about what she does, and have a conversation about, does OBPAC want to get more involved in that campaign selection process and things that she does, because right now they currently go to primarily to the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. The
OTSC?
Oh, yeah.
Oregon Traffic Safety Committee.
Okay. So there's a different group that she primarily works with for those, but we can having more voices involved in our outreach is always really valuable. So it's just been kind of a figuring out who has the time and the interest.
Totally. Okay, that's super helpful. And yeah, I just wanted to put that out because someone had said that to me. And if our group is interested, I'm not going to say like, we just have to go and do this, but I think it is an interesting subject, and thinking about whether or not we would want to at least have a presentation on it potentially, or potentially get involved down the road. So thank you for that.
So is that something that everybody else would like for me to try to get on the agenda for a future meeting as well?
I support that. I want to voice because Lauren brought this up earlier. I think that she isn't present now, but would be interested in learning more about the existing resources, and also having a conversation around, okay, are those resources aligned with our values? Are there some adjustments that we might want to discuss?
And Andre, if you want to connect the person who brought that up with you to me, I'm happy to help them get to the right folks to directly.
Sweet, awesome. Thank you so much.
I wanted to see if everyone received the opportunity to do one-on-one follow-ups with Erica. I know I did. I just haven't gotten back to that email yet.
I have received, I haven't gotten back.
Okay, so that closed the loop from last meeting. Just wanted to make sure that we're following up.
I did find the Van Buren Bridge status update. So one of the public comments that the committee received in July was from an individual in Corvallis who had questions about the status of the Van Buren Bridge and whether it could be repurposed as a pedestrian and bicycle bridge. Basically, that is a historic bridge that does not meet any of our current structural or transportation needs, structural standards or our current transportation needs, and is being replaced by a full new bridge that includes bike lane, improved bike lanes and pedestrian facilities. But there is a very vocal local group who would like to see the historic bridge also repurposed as a parallel pedestrian and bicycle only bridge. So I reached out to Savannah Crawford, who is the area manager for that project, who says that that bridge replacement project is nearing final design and permitting. And it will be bid for construction in February of 2023, with construction anticipated to start in summer next year. It is a $71.6 million project that will construct an eastbound 2-lane earthquake-ready bridge with multi-use path across the Willamette River, a new signal at First and Van Buren, and upgrade the signal at Second. Currently, the project is finalizing the historic resources review process, which identifies mitigation for adverse impacts to the historic bridge, historic district, and archaeological sites in the area. Potential mitigation strategies include salvaging the pony truss and swing span turning mechanism. This is one of those bridges that rotates out for any higher boats, ships, boats that need to get through. And relocation of those elements is still to be determined. ODOT, FHWA, and SHPO, that's the historic State Historic Preservation Office, plan to finalize mitigation strategies by the end of October, which tells me I should have looped back with her before this meeting, since we're now not November 15th, with a signed memorandum of agreement. NEPA, our National Environmental Protection Act, work is planned to conclude shortly thereafter. So the short, simple version of that is the ODOT project is doing the work that ODOT needs to do to replace the bridge because it couldn't be utilized for the multimodal purpose that it needed to serve. It's going to have improved pedestrian and bicycle facilities. There is an opportunity to move that bridge and repurpose the bridge in different ways, like a pedestrian and bicycle bridge elsewhere on the river. It's just who has the resources and desire to take the lead on such an effort, because that's outside of the scope of what ODOT is tasked to do in that area, and there's not another group that has. So.
Okay, we're about to run over. Anybody else have anything they wanted to bring to the table?
Okay, we're actually.
And we have 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes? I thought,
Well, we 45.
I appreciate you making sure we're out here before.
Sorry. All right. Any more questions about the bridge? I have a question. The adequate multimodal use on that bridge, it's not just a lane, is it, that might get visited by a bus on occasion?
Oh.
I have been involved in helping with some of the design review on the approach where we have bike boxes and things like that. I believe it is a buffered bike lane, not just a standard bike lane.
There is a comment in the chat you might want to read.
Yeah, I was just looking at that one, Dave. So we have a separation between the bike lane and the sidewalk. So if you had an issue in the bike lane, you would have to walk to the end of the bridge or climb over a traffic separator. So that is a comment and request I am happy to forward to Savannah, who is the area manager working with that project team, who could get you a more comprehensive answer than I do. If you don't mind putting your email in the chat, Dave.
Or you could send through Ask ODOT too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have a different topic.
Well, are we done with the bridge? Awesome. And I am so glad that it's going to be so flushed out and wonderful when they're done with it. What do you have, Emma?
I was curious if there's any updates, and if you don't have them now or next meeting or follow up between meetings would be fine. The climate friendly and equitable communities rulemaking that the Department of Land Conservation and Development passed had required collection of bicycle and pedestrian inventory data in a piecemeal approach in metropolitan areas throughout Oregon. And I'm curious if there's any update on how that is being implemented and if ODOT is taking any actions to do a more comprehensive approach that is not further discriminating in planning for bike and ped facilities in future transportation system planning. Or if that's something that maybe we should write a letter to OTC or take some sort of action on. Where's that item at? Have you been working with Teresa at all on it? So the update that I can provide, I just wanted to check with Jessica to see if she'd been engaged. Teresa Conley, previously had been our Region 4 RTC. She started, I believe, about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, as the transportation planning rule implementation lead. And I know that is on her kind of work program in terms of how to address the data needs. So that's a place that we can provide an update again on kind of what the progress is and if how much OBPAC wants to dig in after we get that progress update. Yeah, I think I can just connect with her. I don't want to take full committee meeting for everything. So if you can just give me contact info, I can have the initial conversation and see if there's enough there to maybe bring it to the whole group.
That'd be great.
And just for the rest of the group, if you're not familiar with the climate friendly and equitable communities rulemaking, that is the update to the transportation planning rule. That's the big one from the 90s that created the urban growth boundaries. And I'm sorry about that. Robin chatted me. She's been the one that has been on the coordination with the climate friendly and equitable communities. So she made a note about if there's things you specifically wanted. I'll connect with Robin. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about that, Robin. Thanks, Robin. Yeah, so it's the major update to what was one of those landmark 90s Oregon
statewide planning goals.
Yep.
19 goals, originally 15 or something.
That make us the state that everybody learns about in planning school. So updates to that include a lot of data collection and design of interest to the work this group does.
All right, anybody else have any roundtable Hey, mine was, I was at a NEAC meeting and they were talking about striping.
A NEACT is
Northeast. I don't
Area
know.
Commission on Transportation.
That's it.
That's why we're co-chairs.
Since you remember everything. So I was at this meeting and they were talking about fog lines, and the fog lines are set to become wider than what they are currently. Which you'd think, yay, that's so visible, because it has to do with autonomous vehicles and all that other good stuff, if I understand it correctly. I am a little bit hesitant, and I'm assuming that all of the research has been done, but I'm worried about, one, the surface becoming a little more slick to ride on for tires. And then I am too concerned that, a lot of people ride on one side of the fog line, and that real estate is going to be lost into paint. I'd hate for this fix to be something that sounds really good, but like with the rumble strips, it ends up really impacting the cyclist. So just wanted to bring it up.
Can you be more specific about how wide they're going to be?
It is a standard that is coming down the pipe. I do not know exactly, but it's like almost twice as wide.
I wonder if it's trying to.
It seems very large.
It's 5 inches now.
So right now with fog lines, so just like the skinny stripe on the shoulder of a road is 4 inches.
4 inches, right?
And a bike lane in Oregon is 8 inches. There are, I said 6 inches. Oh my goodness, I should know this.
I thought 8, that was my gut, but
Yeah,
like maybe
it is. It's 6 feet wide, 8-inch stripe. So it's 8 inches. There is a proposal in the new manual on uniform traffic control devices, which is kind of the big thick Bible that all the engineers have to use to make sure all of our striping and signage and traffic controls are consistent across the country. So stop signs don't look different on the East Coast than they do on the West Coast. They have proposed to make all striping 8-inch standard, and that is part of what is being advocated for to make autonomous and connected vehicles more able to operate on roadways. It has a lot of implications and has had a lot of feedback as that big guide goes through its first time in, I think 2012 was the last time it was updated. So once a decade, roughly update. So it's gotten a lot of comments from DOTs because there's also concern about it being a really big cost that public agencies are going to have to take on with already struggling maintenance budgets. I'm not sure where that conversation is at in that draft guidance being finalized right now, though. So it's something I can look into. But it would kind of relate to that new mobility topic area.
I'd like to follow up with it just. My husband is missing a huge chunk out of his hip because he hit one of those lines and totally ate it.
On a slick time.
It was during a criterium. There's a whole bunch of other information to that, but it was one of those things where it was totally, the surface gave out and he very much injured himself. And if it becomes the norm, then it makes where, particularly on the other side of the state, there's not much road and we ride on the side. And so if you are taking away the fog line and making it bigger, that's just less room to ride on.
And where's that 4 inches going? Is it going 2 inches in both directions? Is it going 4 inches?
And we just had some striping done at one of the highways, and the stripe was literally in the gravel. And I was not overly impressed, but that is my opinion. Anybody else have anything that they would like to add for our agenda, for the agenda build recap? or information for the general masses?
Earlier, when Jessica provided the accomplishments update, I thought about the Transportation Safety Action Plan and how when that had been brought forward before, we talked about, hey, this is great, but what about implementation? So we might want to put it as a future potential agenda item to get an update on, okay, we did all this planning work, but is it actually producing the results that are intended? The data that we heard earlier for your modal committee chair meeting with OTC yesterday was not inspiring. It was going the wrong direction.
Right. All right, so let me share the draft agenda outline for January real quick, and y'all can let me know if there's anything to take out or add that we know about right now. So that meeting will be the 24th, based on our earlier conversation. So on committee business, we'll have legislative update. The outreach subcommittee will have had their meeting with the local BPACs. Mavis, you'll have attended the OTC area commissions on transportation modal chairs meeting to report back on. Anything else for committee business reporting back on work plan items?
Well, also the Safe Routes School thing will have gone by then. In the OCC, whatever that is.
In the MAC follow-up meeting.
Is there anything going on with scenic bikeways or ORTAC between now and January that you're gonna want to report back on?
I'm not sure. We had a scenic bikeways meeting just last week and sort of trying to get the ball rolling again, and not sure when we'll have a follow-up on that, but I'll keep you posted. More or less the same with ORTAC. We had a trail review of the Banks Vernonia Trail, which was sort of cool to, we've been sort of on hiatus because of COVID, and so we actually had a couple other trail reviews earlier this year too. So we will plan to do 3 trails every year. And these are ones that are designated as Oregon Scenic Trails. Some of them are walking trails, some of them are mixed use trails.
Well, I will make sure to reach out to you before our next meeting, so we get you into the agenda loop for any updates. Other thing for January is everyone should have their one-on-ones done with Erica McAlpin. So she was going to come back to loop back with the agency or with the committee. So we've got that, some more grant program updates. I've got a few loop back items, public comments, and committee member requests. So more on Van Buren Bridge.
I haven't really been looking. Do you have it divided into the 4 major goals? Or
I will get it structured that way. So
that'll be in the work plan. So I actually want to clarify next steps for work plan. Jessica, would you be willing to provide the blank template for the work plan with the pieces that we figured out today, or do you need any support from committee members on getting that initial, here's the skeleton, now go forth and fill it in.
Yeah, I will, as long as everybody's okay with me not getting that to them till December, because I'm gonna be out for a bit. I can get
Yeah.
that going.
That'd be great to know exactly what's expected of us.
Yeah.
Great.
Other follow-up items I've got from our discussion today. I'll put in the agenda build for May that we're gonna do a work plan revisit and some more workshopping. We'll get the work plan in the new templates. All the focus groups are going to try to get together between now and January 24th to talk about the vision for those work plan areas and apply those equity lens questions that I will redistribute to the group. I'll get Heidi Manlove on the agenda for January.
I think this is looking pretty full, so maybe we can talk about whether it's January or whether it's a future item.
But that is question mark.
Backing up to the work plan thing, do you want us to have it to you by January 15 to go to be as part, a document that's part of the agenda?
What I proposed earlier is between when Jessica sends it out beginning of December and before the end of December holidays to do our work. And then if you need any final stuff in January, you can, but so that we'd be reviewing what people had already produced in January.
Posted, it's just gonna be draft stuff.
Well, it's a working document, so don't feel worried about it being posted. It's just so that we can see and come to our next committee meeting a little further along with the conversation.
Good.
And then I will see, Emma, you're gonna connect with Robin about climate friendly equitable communities. And I will get an update on what's going on with the TSAP implementation program. Right, so Transportation Safety Action Plan, implementation plan.
All right, we are over time, so anybody else have anything? I move that we adjourn.
I don't know why I wanted to clap. In person, it doesn't sound so weird. Over Zoom, it's like, yeah, it's weird. It's weird over Zoom. Agreed. One of the joys of being in person, you get to clap.
I'm so scattered because of. Look,
It's hard.
It is definitely